She mistook a millionaire CEO for the concierge, but that mistake changed everything. Hello everyone, before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us return to our main character. The low hum of conversation filled the grand lobby of the Fairmont Hotel in downtown Manhattan. Crystal chandeliers sparkled above polished marble floors. Guests in tailored suits and silk dresses moved with quiet elegance, and every scent of perfume seemed more expensive than the last. Behind the reception counter stood Ella Bennett, 25 years old, her posture straight, but her hands trembling just enough to betray her nerves. Her reflection in the gold-rimmed mirror across the lobby reminded her who she was beneath the crisp uniform. A girl from Brooklyn working double shifts to pay medical bills and her little brother's school fees. Her black flats were worn thin, and the name tag pinned to her chest was slightly crooked. But she smiled anyway, because smiles were part of the job. A sleek black car pulled up outside. Through the glass doors, Ella saw a man step out. He looked mid-30s, tall, broad-shouldered, his dark hair perfectly in place. No luggage cart followed him, no staff accompanied him. He wore a charcoal gray suit, simple but cut so well it had to be expensive. Yet, without a name badge or a clipboard, he looked at least to her like one of the new concierge hires she had been told to expect that morning. When he approached the front desk, Ella exhaled a quick breath and forced her brightest professional smile. "Excuse me," she said softly. "Could you please help the guest in Suite 307 with her luggage? She has been waiting for quite a while." The man blinked, clearly caught off guard. His lips curved slightly, amused. "You want me to help with her bags?" "Yes," Ella said, cheeks warming. "The cart is by the elevator. I would do it myself, but my supervisor will be back any second." There was something so sincere, so urgent in her tone that he found himself nodding before thinking. "Sure," he said simply, and walked toward the elevator. "Ella exhaled?" Relieved. She turned to another guest, her heart still racing, unaware that the man she had just ordered around was Adrian Cole, the chief executive officer of the very company that owned the Fairmont chain. Upstairs, Adrian helped the elderly guest with her luggage, earning a startled, "Thank you, young man." When he returned to the lobby, Ella caught his eye and smiled gratefully. "You are a lifesaver," she said. He chuckled, glad to be of service. Only when he stepped away did he glance down at the sleek black badge clipped inside his jacket pocket, the one engraved with the words, "Adrian Cole, Chief Executive Officer, Cole Hospitality Group." He slipped it back and shook his head, still smiling. Across the counter, Ella's phone buzzed with a reminder. Rent due tomorrow. The number made her stomach tighten, but she pushed the worry aside. She had made a mistake today. Yes, but the stranger had been kind, and kindness was rare in her world. She did not know that this small misunderstanding would soon change the course of her life forever. The next morning, sunlight filtered through the blinds of a small apartment in Brooklyn. The sound of traffic and distant sirens mixed with the sizzle of eggs in a pan. Ella Bennett balanced a frying pan in one hand and her phone in the other, scrolling through unpaid bills. The total on the screen made her chest tighten. Rent was due that day. Her paycheck from the hotel would cover barely half. At the kitchen table sat her little brother, Michael, 14 years old, thin but bright-eyed, finishing his homework before school. He looked up from his notebook. "Ella, did you sleep at all?" She smiled faintly. "A few hours. It was a long night shift." Michael frowned. "You should not work so hard. I can find a part-time job." Ella shook her head. "You focus on school, that is your job." He sighed and went back to his writing. The apartment was small, one bedroom and a narrow living area that doubled as a dining space. But Ella had filled it with warmth plants on the windowsill, cheap fairy lights strung across the wall, and a single framed sketch, her mother's favorite drawing, the home for the lost. She glanced at it now and whispered, "Someday." After Michael left for school, Ella packed her bag. Inside was her sketchbook, its pages filled with designs, soft lighting, curved lines, spaces that felt like safety. Her dream was to become an interior designer, to build places that gave people comfort, But dreams did not pay rent, and reality came in the form of double shifts and tired feet. By the time she reached the Fairmont Hotel, the morning rush had already begun. Guests checked out, bellmen hurried past, and her supervisor barked orders in clipped tones. Ella took her place behind the counter, pushing her worries down where no one could see them. Adrian Cole stood a few yards away, dressed sharply again, this time with a visitor badge clipped to his pocket. He was reviewing notes on his phone when he noticed her across the lobby, her face half hidden behind a polite smile. She looked different in daylight, calmer, but with something fragile in her eyes. For a moment, he considered walking over to explain yesterday's misunderstanding, but the words felt awkward on his tongue. She had looked at him like he was part of her world, not above it, and he did not want to break that illusion yet. Instead, he observed quietly as she helped a family check out, carrying a toddler's dropped toy and offering the little boy a peppermint from her pocket. When the lobby quieted, she noticed him watching. "Oh, you are back," she said, trying to hide her embarrassment. "I hope yesterday did not get you into trouble." "Not at all," Adrian replied, smiling. "I think the guest appreciated the help." She laughed softly, the tension easing from her shoulders. "Good. I would have felt awful if you got scolded because of me." He tilted his head. "You care too much about other people's opinions." She blinked. "Maybe. When you depend on tips and shifts, you learn to keep everyone happy." Oler. Her honesty struck him harder than he expected. In her tone, there was no self-pity, only quiet acceptance. He gestured to the notebook tucked beneath her arm. "You draw?" Ella hesitated, then nodded. "Just ideas, designs. My mom taught me before she passed." He leaned slightly closer. "May I see?" She hesitated again, then opened a page. Pencil lines formed the shape of a warm, open lounge, soft amber lights, worn leather chairs, a fireplace framed with stone. Beneath it, she had written, "Every soul deserves a warm haven." Adrian studied the drawing, moved in a way he could not explain. "You have real talent," he said quietly. She blushed, closing the book. "It is just a dream. People like me do not get to build things. We just keep them clean." He looked at her, wanting to tell her she was wrong, that she could build anything she wanted, but he stopped himself. Revealing who he was now would change everything. A voice called from across the lobby. "Ella, break's over," her supervisor snapped. Ella straightened, offering him a small smile. "Duty calls." As she hurried away, Adrian's gaze followed her. He realized something unusual. He felt lighter, almost hopeful. For the first time in years, a stranger's kindness had made him curious about the world again. And though Ella did not know it, her sketchbook, her laughter, and that one small mistake had already begun to draw their lives together. Midday found the Fairmont Hotel lobby breathing a slower rhythm. The breakfast rush had passed, the afternoon conferences not yet begun. Ella Bennett stood at the reception desk sorting key cards when she noticed the tall man from yesterday near the elevator bank, reading a floor plan posted on a marble column. He looked focused, almost curious, as if the building itself were talking to him. She hesitated, then stepped over. "Are you lost, or are you inspecting us again?" she asked, trying to sound light. He smiled. "A little of both. I am noticing how guests move through the space. I am Adrian." "Ella," she said, though they both already knew. "You were very kind yesterday. Thank you again." He nodded toward the plan. "Do you ever think about how this lobby could feel warmer? The light is beautiful, but the seating looks like it is designed to keep people from staying." Her heart thumped once. "I have thought about it," she said carefully. "But usually in my sketchbook, no one asks the front desk for design advice." "I am asking," he said. "Would you have coffee with me during your break, and tell me what you see that I am missing?" She glanced toward her supervisor, who was busy with a tour group, then checked the clock. "I have 15 minutes. They rode the elevator to the staff level. The cafeteria was plain, with linoleum floors and humming soda machines, but it smelled of fresh coffee and cinnamon rolls. Adrian carried 2 paper cups and set one in front of her. "Cream and sugar?" he asked. "Just a little cream," she said, grateful for the warmth between her hands. The first sip steadied her voice. "You want honest, not polite?" "Honest," he said. She opened the sketchbook. The page showed a reimagined lobby, fewer velvet ropes, more curved seating that drew people together, lamps at eye level, art that felt made by human hands. Guests walk in and feel small, she said. Everything is beautiful, but it keeps them at a distance. I would bring the light down, add texture, wood, leather, that looks lived in, not just expensive. I would create corners where a tired traveler could breathe. Adrian studied the page. You think about how strangers feel before they think about the hotel brand. I think about people, Ella said softly. When my mom was sick, the worst rooms were the ones that made you feel like you were failing just by standing there. My favorite places were never the prettiest. They were the places with warm air and a chair that did not judge you. He sat back, caught off guard by the clarity of her words. What about the flow from the front door to the elevators? She pointed to the plan. The baggage cart's bottleneck here at the center. If you shift them to the right and add one attendant during peak hours, guests will not cluster in front of the desk. Also, the welcome desk should have a lower section for a wheelchair user. Right now, it says, this place is not truly for you. Adrian's gaze flicked from her drawing to her eyes. You speak like someone who has done this before. No, boy. I speak like someone who has waited in a lot of lines, she said with a small smile, and someone who has watched a lot of people try to be brave. A silence settled. Not heavy, just present. He broke it gently. How long have you been drawing? Since I was a kid, she said. My mom taught me to look for light. After she passed, I kept drawing because it felt like keeping a promise. I want to build spaces that let people exhale. No. Then why the front desk? He asked, careful not to sound like judgment. Because rent is due, she said simply. Because my brother needs medicine. Because I have a dream, but dreams do not cover a grocery bill. I work, I save, and I hope. He looked at her as if she had said something precious. What would you do first if you had a chance to change one thing here? She tapped the drawing. I would give the lobby a heartbeat. A small fireplace, even an electric one, set into a stone wall. You would be amazed what a calm flame can do for the shoulders of a weary traveler. The cafeteria clock clicked forward. Ella flinched. My break is over. Adrian closed the sketchbook and slid it back to her with care, as if it were fragile. Thank you for trusting me with your ideas. She stood. Thank you for asking. They walked back to the elevator. When the doors opened onto the lobby, sunlight poured across the marble like warm water. Ella stepped out first, retying her ponytail, resetting her professional smile. Adrian lingered a half-pace behind, watching how she greeted a couple with a gentle nod, how she noticed a suitcase zipper that had come undone and fixed it with a quick, kind gesture. He realized he did not want this conversation to be a one-time curiosity. He wanted to see what she saw, to learn how she turned ordinary space into safety. He wanted, for reasons he could not yet name, to keep the world from hardening the softness in her voice. As Ella returned to the desk, her phone buzzed with a message from her landlord. Her breath caught, but she slid the phone away and helped a guest with directions, her voice steady. When she looked up again, Adrian was gone from the elevator bank, but a paper napkin lay on the counter. On it, written in a careful hand, were 7 words that made her blink back sudden heat. Every soul deserves a warm haven. Agreed. 2 days later, the morning sky over Manhattan was painted silver by a soft drizzle. The Fairmont Hotel shimmered beneath it like a glass palace. Inside, Ella Bennett arranged brochures at the front desk, trying to ignore how tired she felt. She had finished a late-night shift, cleaning guest suites to earn a few extra dollars. Her fingers were sore, her smile automatic. A familiar voice stopped her. You are here early again. Oh, she looked up and found Adrian Cole standing near the lobby stairs, holding a folded umbrella. He wore the same understated elegance charcoal suit, no tie, sleeves rolled once at the wrist. It made him look less like a guest and more like someone who belonged everywhere. I live here now, she said lightly, brushing a stray hair from her cheek. Do you need directions again? Actually, he said, I was hoping for your opinion. On what? The redesign project for this hotel. I am consulting on it, and we are holding an internal review today. I remember your sketches. You see things differently, and I could use that perspective. Her breath caught. Me? I am not part of management. That is exactly why I am asking. Her supervisor was across the lobby, too busy scolding a bellman to notice. For a heartbeat, Ella imagined saying yes, walking through the spaces she had dreamed of improving. "I should not," she whispered half to herself. Adrian smiled faintly. "Then come as a guest, not as staff." Something in his tone, steady, unpressuring, tipped the scale inside her. "All right," she said. They walked through the West Wing, where renovation had begun. Plastic sheets rustled under their shoes. The air smelled of plaster and sawdust. Adrian held the door open as she stepped inside a half-finished lounge. The walls were bare, the furniture draped in white cloth. But through the tall windows came a view of the river, soft and gray. "So," he said, "what would you do here?" Ella turned slowly, studying the space as if it were a blank page. "I would keep the windows, maybe add warm wood along the base. The light here is beautiful. You could make it a place where people actually sit and stay." He watched her trace invisible lines in the air, describing textures, fabrics, and tones. Her voice lifted with excitement, her weariness fading. "And that corner," she said, pointing, "needs a focal point. Maybe a fireplace." "Oh," he smiled. "A calm flame for weary travelers?" She blinked at him. "You remembered." "I remember everything you say," he replied quietly. For a moment, the rain outside softened to a whisper. Ella turned away, hiding the warmth in her cheeks. "You are good at making people feel heard." "I'm trying to be," he said. "It is new for me." She glanced at him, puzzled by the seriousness behind his tone. Before she could ask more, his phone buzzed. He stepped aside to answer. "Yes, send the contracts to my office. I will review them this afternoon." His voice changed, calm, authoritative, layered with a confidence that did not belong to an ordinary consultant. When he hung up, he caught her looking at him. "Work call," he said simply. She nodded, though the question stayed in her eyes. They walked back through the corridor. Workers greeted Adrian with respect, some even addressing him as "Sir." Ella noticed but said nothing. Maybe he was a manager, maybe someone high up in corporate. Either way, he was far above her world. Still, when he turned to her by the elevator and said, "Would you join me for lunch?" Just to continue this conversation, she heard herself answer, "Yes." They ate in the staff cafeteria again, though he could easily have chosen the rooftop restaurant. He listened as she talked about her brother Michael, about her mother's sketches and the nights she stayed up drawing beside the flickering stove. Adrian told her about traveling, about how hotels around the world looked the same, perfect but cold. "I think beauty without warmth is loneliness wearing a disguise," he said. Ella looked at him for a long moment. "You talk like someone who has seen too much marble and not enough sunlight." He laughed, surprised. "You might be right." "Oh." Their laughter faded into a comfortable quiet. When her break ended, he walked her back to the lobby. At the desk, she hesitated. "I still do not know what exactly you do here." Adrian's eyes softened. "I manage projects. Let us just say I try to make things run better." She nodded, accepting the half-answer. "Well, thank you for letting me see the new wing. It felt good. Like maybe I belong somewhere other than behind this counter." "You do," he said. Her heart fluttered at the certainty in his voice. She wanted to ask what he meant, but the next guest arrived, and duty called. Adrian stepped back, watching her work with quiet admiration. She had no idea that the sketches she carried in that worn notebook were already shaping his plans for the hotel's future. As he left through the glass doors, the rain had stopped, leaving the city bright and washed clean. Ella exhaled softly and opened her notebook again. On the last page, she had written new words without realizing it. "A space where everyone feels seen." She smiled, unaware that the man who inspired that line was already preparing the next reason for her to believe in her own light. Over the next week, the rhythm of the hotel changed. Adrian Cole appeared more often, sometimes in meetings with department heads, sometimes walking the corridors with a tablet in hand. To everyone else, he was a quiet consultant from corporate. To Ella Bennett, he was the man who asked questions no one else bothered to ask about lighting, temperature, the smell of the lobby flowers. They spoke whenever she had a spare moment. Once, he joined her during a coffee break and listened as she described her favorite spot in the city, a small park near the river where the benches faced the skyline. "When I am there," she said, "I can almost believe I am part of something bigger." He smiled. "Then take me there sometime. I would like to see the city through your eyes." She laughed softly, unsure if he was serious. But 3 days later, on her evening off, he appeared outside the hotel, holding 2 cups of hot chocolate. "You said the park has the best view at sunset," he reminded her. They walked a few blocks together. The city was gentle that evening, the air cool but calm. Pigeons cooed on lampposts, and the scent of roasted chestnuts drifted from a corner cart. When they reached the park, the skyline shimmered across the river, glass and light melting into gold. Ella sat on a wooden bench, her sketchbook resting on her knees. "I used to come here with my mom," she said. "We would imagine stories for the people in the windows. She would ask me, 'Which one looks the happiest tonight?' I never picked the biggest building." Adrian watched her profile, the quiet strength in the way she spoke. "Your mom must have been special." She was. She believed kindness could build things stronger than money ever could. He nodded slowly, as if that truth had been waiting for him to hear. She was right. A silence stretched between them, peaceful but charged with something unspoken. Then Ella turned to him, a teasing smile returning. "So, Mr. Project Manager, what do you actually do when you are not asking people about carpets and chairs?" He hesitated just a moment too long. "I travel, oversee a few properties, review proposals." "That sounds important," she said. "But you talk like someone who misses home." He looked out at the skyline. "Maybe I do." They sat until the sky faded into navy blue. When a light wind brushed her hair across her face, he reached out instinctively, tucking a strand behind her ear. His fingers barely touched her skin, but the gesture froze them both. "I am sorry," he said softly, pulling his hand back. "It is okay," she whispered. "You just surprised me." He smiled, but his voice was quieter now. "You surprise me too." Before leaving, he pointed to her sketchbook. "Would you design something for me? A room, any room, exactly how you think comfort should feel?" She blinked. "For you?" "For the hotel," he said, though his tone carried more meaning than his words. "I want to understand how you see warmth." That night, in her apartment, Ella stayed awake long after Michael had gone to sleep. She drew until dawn soft lines, open spaces, a glowing hearth framed by stone, a single quote beneath it. "Every soul deserves a warm haven." She closed the book and smiled, unaware that her design would soon become the center of a public event that would reveal everything she did not yet know about him. The following week brought a different energy to the Fairmont Hotel. Spring sunlight filtered through the tall windows, and the air inside carried the scent of fresh lilies. Guests hurried past with luggage, but Ella Bennett no longer blended quietly into the background. Her confidence had begun to bloom. Every time Adrian Cole stopped by the front desk, her smile lingered a little longer. He had become part of her daily rhythm. Sometimes he brought her coffee. Other times he simply listened, standing by the counter while she shared stories about guests, sketches, or her brother Michael's latest science project. It was not the kind of attention she was used to. It was gentle, curious, and real. One afternoon, as she finished checking in a family from Chicago, she found a small envelope resting beside her keyboard. Inside was a note in precise handwriting. "Lunch, rooftop terrace, 1 o'clock. A surprise awaits." Her heart raced. She looked up and saw Adrian at the far end of the lobby, pretending to study his phone. At exactly 1, she stepped onto the rooftop terrace. A table had been set near the railing, overlooking the skyline. A vase held a single white tulip, and beside it sat her sketchbook, open to the page she had shown him days ago, the one with the fireplace and soft amber light. Adrian stood nearby, smiling. "I borrowed it for a moment," he said. "I hope you do not mind." She shook her head, trying not to blush. "You did all this?" "I wanted to thank you," he said. "You reminded me what design should feel like human." He gestured for her to sit. The lunch was simple: soup, salad, and lemonade. But the conversation filled more than the plates. He asked about her dreams beyond the hotel. She told him she wanted to open a studio called Warm Haven, a place that designed for hospitals, shelters, anywhere that needed light and kindness. "You talk about it like it already exists," he said. "Because if I do not believe it first," she answered, "no one else will." He laughed softly. "That sounds like something my younger self once said." She tilted her head. "What happened to him?" "He got busy counting numbers instead of stories." Something in his tone made her curious, but she let it pass. They talked about art, music, and their favorite views of the city. For the first time in years, Ella forgot about rent, deadlines, and exhaustion. The world felt lighter. When the wind picked up, he offered his jacket. She tried to refuse, but he draped it over her shoulders anyway. It carried the faint scent of cedar and rain. "Adrian," she said quietly, "I still do not understand why you spend time with me. I am just—" "Stop," he said gently. "You are not just anything. You see what others overlook. That is rare." Her eyes met his, the city glimmering behind them. For a heartbeat, the noise below faded. She felt seen, understood. He smiled, breaking the silence. "Would you do me another favor? Attend the gala next week. The company is unveiling a new project. I think you should see it." She hesitated. "Me? At a gala? You belong there more than you think." When he walked her back to the elevator, she clutched his jacket around her shoulders, heart fluttering. That night, she told Michael about the lunch, the terrace, the invitation. He teased her, calling it a fairy tale. But when she opened her sketchbook before bed, she found a new line written in unfamiliar handwriting beneath her drawing. "For Ella Bennett, who designs from the heart." She smiled to herself. Whatever that gala would bring, she already felt something changing inside her, and perhaps inside him too. The music from the ballroom still echoed in Ella Bennett's ears as she pushed through the heavy doors and stepped into the quiet hallway. Her breath came fast, her heart pounding so hard she thought the sound might betray her. Just minutes ago, she had stood among a crowd of glittering guests, staring at the stage in disbelief while the host announced, "Please welcome our Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Adrian Cole." It had taken her a moment to understand. The man who carried luggage for strangers, who listened to her talk about sketches and dreams, who shared soup and laughter, was not a consultant at all. He was the owner of the hotel, the very definition of the world she thought she would never belong to. She found an empty balcony and gripped the railing, cold metal pressing into her palms. The city below shimmered with light, but everything inside her felt dark. She heard his footsteps before she saw him. "Ella," Adrian said quietly. She turned, her voice trembling. "You should not have come after me. Go back to your party, Mr. Cole." He flinched at the name. "Please, it is not what you think." She let out a soft, bitter laugh. "You lied to me, Adrian. Every day. You let me talk about struggling to pay rent while you stood there with your perfect suit and your company logo on the building behind me." "I never wanted to deceive you," he said. "I wanted to know what the hotel felt like to the people who work here. To understand it beyond the boardroom. And then I met you. And everything changed. I could not tell you who I was. Not after the first mistake. Not after the way you looked at me like I was." "Like you were human?" she interrupted, eyes bright with tears. "That is all I saw. Someone kind. Someone who listened. You did not need to pretend to be less. You just needed to be honest." He stepped closer, his voice low, pleading. "You once said every soul deserves a warm haven. I was trying to build that with you. I was trying to find it myself." She shook her head. "You built palaces, Adrian. I build trust, and you broke mine." The silence between them stretched. In the ballroom behind them, the applause for someone else's speech rose and faded. "I will fix this," he said finally. "I will prove that what I feel for you is real." Her tears slipped free, tracing lines down her cheeks. "Do not promise things you can buy," she whispered. This was never about money. He reached for her, but she stepped back. "You should not touch me right now," she said. "Not when I cannot tell if any of it was true." "Ella." "Good night, Mr. Cole." She turned and walked down the corridor, her heels clicking against the marble, steady even as her heart cracked with each step. Adrian stood alone on the balcony, the wind pulling at his jacket, the city glowing beneath him. For the first time in years, the man who owned everything felt completely powerless. Inside, the gala continued without him. Laughter and champagne filled the air, but the only sound that mattered to him was the echo of her voice saying his name one last time. Far below, Ella stepped out into the cold night, lifting her face toward the rain. She had believed in kindness, and perhaps she still did, but tonight, that belief hurt more than it healed. A month passed. The Fairmont Hotel prepared for a new art and design exhibition, and the city buzzed with excitement. Ella Bennett had left her position 2 weeks after the gala. She found temporary work at a small interior studio in Brooklyn, spending her evenings sketching quietly in the same worn notebook that had once connected her to Adrian Cole. She told herself she had moved on, but every time she passed a hotel lobby, she thought of him. Every time she saw polished marble or smelled cedar and rain, her heart remembered. One Friday afternoon, her phone buzzed with an unexpected message from the Fairmont's event office. Invitation, private opening, the home for the lost. The words made her freeze. That was her design, the concept she had drawn for Adrian, the one she never submitted. At first, she thought it was a mistake. But curiosity, and something deeper, pulled her back to the place she had sworn never to return. That evening, she stepped through the hotel's glass doors. The lobby looked different, softer, warmer. Wooden panels replaced the cold marble walls. Lamps glowed with amber light. A gentle fire burned behind a stone hearth. Guests sat together on curved couches, their laughter quiet but real. Her throat tightened. It was her sketch brought to life. A small sign by the fireplace read, "Inspired by the vision of Ella Bennett, every soul deserves a warm haven." She stood frozen until she heard a familiar voice behind her. "It took me a while to build it right." Adrian stood a few feet away, dressed simply. No tie, no badge, no walls. His expression carried exhaustion and hope all at once. "You used my design," she said softly. "I built your dream," he answered, "because it was the only way I could show you that I meant every word I said that night. I am sorry for hiding who I was. I thought I was protecting something fragile. I ended up breaking the only thing that mattered." Her eyes filled with tears. "Why would you do this?" "Because you were right. Kindness builds stronger than money. You changed how I see everything." He stepped closer but did not touch her. "If you walk away now, I will understand. But I wanted you to see that you were never invisible, Ella. Not to me." The firelight reflected in her eyes as she whispered, "You really remembered every detail." "I remembered you," he said simply. She looked around the glowing space, the laughter, the warmth she had dreamed of creating, and realized that maybe forgiveness was also a kind of design, one that built something new from broken pieces. For the first time in weeks, she smiled. The fireplace crackled softly as the last guests drifted out of the new lounge. Only two people remained, Ella Bennett and Adrian Cole, standing in the warm glow of the space she had once imagined on paper. The air carried the faint scent of cedar and coffee, a perfect mix of comfort and calm. Adrian took a slow breath. "I never expected you to come tonight," he said, "but I hoped you would." Ella looked at him, her voice steady but gentle. "I almost did not. I thought this place would remind me of everything I lost. But it feels different now. It feels honest," he nodded. "Because it is yours as much as it is mine. I added nothing that you did not already dream. I just followed your lines." She smiled faintly. "You always were good at listening." He hesitated, then reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small silver key. "This is for you. It opens the design studio upstairs. The Warm Haven project is officially yours to lead, if you will take it." Her eyes widened. "Adrian, I cannot—" "Yes, you can," he said firmly. "This hotel needed heart, and you gave it that. You deserve to shape what comes next." "No." She looked down at the key resting in her palm, the metal catching the light like a promise. "You really built all of this for me?" "For us," he said softly. "For what we could build together. You taught me that love is not about saving someone, it is about creating something worth sharing." The silence that followed was tender, filled with the hum of possibility. Then she stepped closer, close enough that the firelight touched both their faces. "You already did," she whispered. He smiled, eyes glistening. "Does that mean you forgive me?" Ella nodded slowly. "On one condition." "Anything. That we keep building warmth for everyone, not just ourselves." Adrian's voice broke into a quiet laugh. "Deal." He slipped his hand into hers, and for the first time, she did not pull away. The city lights shimmered beyond the windows, reflected in their eyes like tiny sparks of new beginnings. Months later, the Warm Haven studio opened on the hotel's top floor, a place where young designers created spaces for shelters, hospitals, and schools. At the entrance hung a plaque engraved with her favorite words, Every soul deserves a warm haven. On opening day, Adrian stood beside her, fingers intertwined with hers. The world outside still glittered with wealth and division, but inside that room, warmth had become something real, something earned. And as the doors opened to the first guests, Ella whispered, "Sometimes the best mistakes lead us exactly where we are meant to be."